So let's have a quick conversation about for loops and while loops. So this is iteration, which is just a fancy word for looping. And you can see here I've got a line of code which will output hello world in the shell. So I'm using the Thonny app to do this, which is a free download. So what if I wanted to repeat this command? Well, I could copy and paste it, and that would output it more than once. But it's not very efficient to have to keep writing lots and lots of commands that are basically the same thing. So another way we could do it is to have one command but prefix it with a for loop. So a for loop, if I want it to loop 3 times, I put 3 in the brackets, and this needs to be indented. So that I'm using the tab key for that, not the space bar. The tab key is just to the left of the Q key on your keyboard. So anything that's tabbed in is a part of this for loop. So if I play this, you can see it has put hello world 3 times. Now let's add the time library, and then we can see if we make it sleep, if we make it pause 1 second on each loop, you should see more clearly that it is looping in the shell. Okay, and if we write something after which has not been, then this print command on line 7 will only run after it has finished looping. He says hopefully 1, 2, 3, and then we are out of the loop. So what is X doing, I hear you wonder? Well, X is incrementing, which means it goes up by 1 each time. It starts at 0, it all happens automatically, and on each loop it will check if it's got to 3 yet. So on the first loop, X is at 0. Have I got to 3 yet? No. Okay, well I can run these commands. Then it loops. This is automatically incremented to 1. Have I got to 3 yet? Nope. So we can loop. This gets to 2. Have I got to 3 yet? So it can loop. Then this gets to 3. Have I got to 3 yet? Well, yes, I have now got to 3. So I can't run this. I break out of the loop and I run line 7. Now we can illustrate this graphically by actually printing the value of X on each loop. So you can see that on the first loop it printed the value of X as being 0, and then on the second loop it printed it as the value of X of 1, and on the third loop the value of X of 2. And the reason it doesn't show a number 3 is because it runs on the second loop, hello world, it pauses and then outputs the number 2, then it goes up to here, this increments to 3, but then it says, have I got to 3 yet? Yes, I have got to 3. So you never get to print this at 3, it just immediately breaks out and jumps down to that. So for loops are known as count controlled loops, and they are different from while loops, which are condition controlled loops. So let's have a look at a simple while loop. Okay, so if I write the word while true, and this true is a Boolean word, which is why it starts with a capital T, it's a command word. So let's print hello world again. Okay, and in fact let's put the time library in so that we can make it pause a second on each loop. Now for loops are count controlled, as we've already said. While loops are condition controlled. They will essentially loop forever until the condition has been met. So there's no counting going on here. It's looping, it's looping, it's looping, it's looping forever, ever more. Now as you get more and more into your code, you can set a variable. So instead of writing while true, you can put that Boolean term into a variable, which I've called looping. So while this variable is set to true, okay, so while looping is equivalent to true, it will run this. Okay, so let's go. So this is the condition that will mean it keeps looping. So what if we add a condition that changes the variable looping to false? Can you guess how many times that looping is how many times it's going to loop? How many times is it going to output hello world if I run this command? Okay, so we've got a variable, it's set to true, so it has an assigned value of true, that's why there's 1 equals here. And this is checking, 2 equals means it is checking what has been saved into this variable. So it is checking if looping is set to true, then do this. And if looping is not set to true, it won't do this. That's the condition. So while looping is set to true, run these commands. So it will run this command, output hello world, it'll pause, and then it will set looping to false. So let's see what happens. Okay, so it ran it once, and the reason it ran it once, even though it's a loop, is because it ran this command and then it changed the value that's been assigned to this variable to false. Then it went back up here and said, while looping is set to true, I'm not going to run this though, because actually looping has been set to false. Now this is a very simple example, and more complicated programs will change the value depending on whatever's going on with the program, but this is the difference between count controlled and condition controlled iteration. So where might you use a for loop? Well, in our Pi Club, where we are using a Pico with MicroPython, one of the first things that you're asked to do is to make the onboard LED light up. So 1 means it will light up, a pause of 3 seconds, and then it will turn off the light. And if we run that, you should see, hold on, I haven't set it to connect to the Raspberry Pi Pico, so let's do that now by clicking in the bottom right hand corner of Thonny. So now when I run that program, if you look at the Pico that you've got connected to your computer, it should flash on once for 3 seconds and then turn off again. Now we can, one of the challenges that you were asked to do was to make it repeat that. So we could highlight that and Control C copy and Control V paste, but there is a problem with this code. So if we run it, and it just looks like the light stays on for 6 seconds. And that's because it turns the light on, it waits for 3 seconds, it turns the light off, and then immediately, in about a billionth of a second, it turns the light on again. So we need a pause in here, so we could make it sleep for 1 second, and then we could repeat the process. So you can see here, I can copy that, repeat it, maybe even do it again. So it's 3 times, and if we run that program, it goes on for 3 seconds, off for a second, on for 3 seconds, off for a second, and then it does it again. But again, this isn't very efficient. You know, this is just repeating the same code again and again. So I'm going to delete the second and the third paragraph, and yes, you guessed it, I'm going to put it in a for loop. So for x in range, let's make it loop 3 times, don't forget the colon, and we can highlight all of this and indent it like that. Now if you go too far, oh dear, I've indented it too far, you can highlight it and you can hold shift, which is just below the caps lock key, and if you hold down shift and then tab, it goes backwards. Okay, so we only want to tab in once, and that indents it, so it tells the program these lines of code all belong to this for loop. If this was like that, it would skip this because it doesn't think it's a part of the loop. Right, so if we run this now, with many fewer lines of code, it should loop 3 times and flash, turn the light on, pause for 3 seconds, turn the light off, pause for 1 second. Okay, so that is where you might use a for loop. Now you could, this is a count controlled loop, you could increase the number of loops to 10 or however many you want, or if you want it to loop forever, you could do while true, and then it will loop forever and until you stop the program.